Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lynette Roach, and I'm the External Relations Director of Black Health Matters. I'm so pleased to introduce the panel. I'm pleased to introduce the panel entitled Mental Health and Heart Health. First off, we're so excited to have with us actor, musician, author, entrepreneur, philanthropist, and heart health advocate, Mr. Malik Yoba. Born in the South Bronx and raised right here in Harlem, Mr. Yoba offers almost 3 decades of commitment to the arts, and his credits include over 50 films and more than a dozen roles in network cable TV series. His debut in Disney's Cool Runnings, remember that? And his performance as NYPD Detective J.C. Williams in the groundbreaking police drama, New York Undercover, catapulted Malik into the fabric of American culture. He recently premiered his musical autobiography, Harlem to Hollywood, at the Apollo Theater with his co-writer, director, and Broadway veteran, Kevin Ramsey. This fall, the newly accredited real estate developer with projects in New York City and Baltimore can be seen opposite Jill Scott in the First Wives Club on BET and in a relaunch of New York Undercover. And second of all, we are joined by singer-songwriter, producer, and former NFL star, Joe Barksdale. Mr. Barksdale originally hails from Detroit, and after starting on Louisiana State University's 2008 NCAA championship team, he played with the Raiders, the Rams, the Chargers, and the Cardinals. In 2013, he wanted to rekindle his love for music as a creative outlet to cope with grief. Concluding an 8-year NFL run, Mr. Barksdale hung up his cleats in 2019 to pursue music full-time. After periods of depression, rejection, therapy as an adult, rechanneled his energies to focus on excellence. He wants to foster awareness to tackle the stigmas surrounding mental illness, including publicly sharing his own experience of 20-plus years silently suffering with depression and suicidal thoughts. He wants to encourage others to seek help. And last, but certainly not least, we have Mr. Dan Pearson. As president and founder of Dan for Entertainment, D4E, Dan has created and managed numerous successful projects across the spectrum of entertainment. He has produced TV, film, music projects, authored books, managed talents, and much more. He is the creator and executive producer for the highly rated TV series, I Married a Mobster. And he was also producer of the award-winning documentary, Harlem Diaries, 9 Voices of Resilience, and the acclaimed documentary, Justifiable Homicide. He's currently an executive producer for an 80s mafia series with Appian Way and Leonardo DiCaprio. Dan Pearson has worked and continues to work with companies such as Simon & Schuster, Discovery Channel, Universal Music Group, Sony Music, Major League Baseball, and EA Sports. Please join me in giving a warm Harlem, New York welcome to all 3 of our distinguished guests. Mr. Elijah Westbrook will be the moderator for this panel. Thank you so much.
Lynette, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction to these wonderful black men we have on our stage this morning. I know this panel discussion is about mental and heart health. two very important things that as a community sometimes we don't really pay enough attention to. And Malik, I want to start with you since you're right next to me. The past 2 years in particular have been a very, I'm sure, difficult time for you. I want to express my condolences to you and the rest of your family. I know you've recently just lost your mom during the pandemic. But during that time, you also discovered something that also impacted you personally, your heart. Do you want to talk about that a little bit and ultimately what you've learned about yourself during that time?
Good morning. Let the church say amen. Because we're here today. Some of us might not have been here. Yeah, my mother died last April 2nd. She was 76 years old, and she had been dealing with dementia for the last 6 years of her life. We were very, very close. She worked with me. She helped manage my life professionally since I was in my early 20s. And a week after she passed, and dementia, and especially being a caregiver of a dementia, a person with dementia, especially advanced dementia during a pandemic was, surreal, to put it lightly. So on top of that, she passes away, and then a week after she passed, I started experiencing what I thought was heartburn. I was doing the show, The Last OG, finished work, went on a bike ride to Dumbo from Fort Greene, and on the way back home, I got off my bike because I felt something that I thought was heartburn from some spicy food I had eaten. And it persisted over the next couple of days. Didn't realize it was only happening when I walked. And I was at the gym, and my trainer said, nah, man, don't work out. Go to the doctor. And then it took some months through blood tests, stool tests, ultimately angiogram and a CT scan and an angiogram, told me I had 4 blocked arteries.
Wow, oh my goodness.
And my mother had heart disease. She had quadruple bypass when she was in her 60s. My father had it when he was in his 60s. So here I am, 53, work out 5 days a week, eat well, look great, feel great, and I'm almost dying and not realizing it. And the burning that I was feeling was actually lactic acid. So when you do have blocked arteries, the body will pull any fluid. And some people might feel in their chest, you might feel in your shoulders, your back, your head. Some people feel it, don't feel it at all. And we hear stories about, my friend was working out in the gym and fell over and died, and that's why. And so in my case, what I learned and why I've become such an advocate, because, so many conditions we deal with you can't see on the surface. And that's like a metaphor for many things, right?
Heartburn, like you said, out of all things, you think it's just, I maybe ate something.
So you go to the doctor and
Right.
you get protocol for heartburn. So take some Nexium, don't drink wine, no acid, no citrus, no tomato sauce. I'm doing that. And, I directed a film during that time. I'm doing all kinds of stuff, not realizing.
Busy guy.
I could have been dying. So that was crazy. Ultimately, what I realized, and this is the most important part, so with, we hear about genetic predisposition, and really what that meant, in my case, is that there's 2 proteins, lipoprotein little a, C-reactive protein. If those things are elevated, those are the markers that you have to pay attention to. And when you get a regular blood test, they don't test for that. So you have to specifically ask for that or have a doctor that's into prevention that knows to ask for that. Because the fact is, you can go to your yearly, like I would do for every year, and you get your cholesterol and everything else checked, and it can read as normal, within the normal range. And they're like, oh, you look good, I was on a statin, and also hypertension is in my family. So I've been on blood pressure meds since I was 24.
Oh my goodness.
I discovered that when I was doing Cool Runnings. and the nurse on set checked me, and so hypertension runs in my family, heart disease. But I thought I was good. I'm working out, doing all these things. So getting those things checked ultimately revealed what was wrong with me. And so what I learned was that flesh, chicken, which is mostly what I ate besides fish, any beef, any red meats, which I didn't really eat a lot anyway, those can act as an accelerant. So in my case, say the calcium levels, normal calcium levels, and there's two types that they check for. The one that they checked for when I was going through my process, the normal readings might be about 300. Mine was 7,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So your outlook on life, I'm sure, has changed completely since this.
Yeah. I don't want to do anything anymore. I'm just giving up. Like, this living thing is hard.
Yeah.
We in the church.
Glad to see that
Lord,
you're here. You're doing well. You look good. You sound good.
Yeah.
And
No, it actually did the reverse. It just made me. I've always been very driven, very ambitious, and very active. It's just made me even more focused and determined to accomplish all the things that I've been blessed with in terms of vision,
absolutely,
ambition. Because everything I do, I mean, you might know me from TV and film, but that's not really what I do. What I really do is serve. What I really do is, I talk a lot about, I'm in the give a damn business. We're in a church, so that's not what I always say. But that's important, that you wake up with a spirit of service to improve, not just your own station in life, but to move other people forward. And so even little things. We used to shoot New York Undercover here. The outside of the school on this church on Claremont used to be my son, Little G's school. And it's little things, even in doing a show like that. When I drop them off right around the corner, Dan and I pulled up this morning, I was like, wow, man, I've got so many memories in this area. But little things like, when I would drop the kid off, I would ask him to kiss me, right? I knew that millions of people are watching this, and you don't see a young black father on television, and you certainly don't see that level of affection.
Right.
And even if it wasn't written, I knew it was important to portray that. So whether it's through the work as an actor, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in cannabis, whether it's in all these businesses that I'm involved in, it's really about service and helping folks out.
Absolutely. Malik, thank you so much for giving us that perspective on your life. And I want to shift gears over to more so the mental health side. We have Joe Barksdale and Dan Pearson here. Joe, I'll start with you briefly. I know that you're also an advocate for mental health, and you yourself have been dealing with depression and other mental health issues. Talk about that. Was there ever a day where you just felt like something was off, that you needed to go and get help?
Not necessarily a day or anything. My first mental health discussion was probably with my mom when I was like 8. It was the night before my birthday, and she asked me if I was excited about my birthday. And I said, I got the feeling that it would be better if I just weren't here anymore, My dad grew up in the projects. He didn't have the best dad. So I was under the impression, I was told by my parents, I was under the impression that I just needed to suck it up more. So I assumed that everybody was getting molested at daycare, and that everybody was getting beat at an incredibly young age, and all these other things that were happening to me. I thought everybody was suicidal, and it wasn't until college really where I realized that everyone doesn't think that way. Maybe I'm crazy. So that's what really got me into into pursuing the mental health thing, which led to being diagnosed with autism a couple years ago as well. So.
Yeah, and you seem like a very strong person mentally, obviously physically.
I am a terribly
Has your
person
outlook
mentally.
has your outlook on life changed since then? What do you want people to know about?
I think my outlook on life hasn't changed at all. I still feel like that 8-year-old kid. I don't want to be here. I know that I'm not the only one that feels that way, and I feel like if no one ever talks about it, because we only talk about suicide after it happens, I feel like if we could maybe, perpetuate that conversation a little bit more, then we could, prevent some of those. But yeah, I know it's jarring to hear, but like I actively do not want to be alive.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
I mean, I'm on medicine. I see a therapist twice a week. I got a psychiatrist because I do have 2 daughters and I got a wife. But yeah, I mean that's. Thank you.
And Dan, I want to bring you into the conversation. Back in the green room, we was talking about some pretty powerful stuff about your life in particular, your upbringing. Throw us back to when you were about 11 years old and what was going on then and how your life has changed and what you do right now, because it's quite incredible.
Well, first and foremost, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to see all you people, and thank you for coming. And I'm going to share a little about myself. I was a terribly abused child to the point of torture. My mother would strip me naked and beat me with an extension cord, put salt in my wounds, and open the window. I didn't know what it was to cry till I was 62. I wasn't allowed to cry. So by the time I was 11, before I was 11, I walked everywhere. I was walking in freedom because that was the only time I was free. Adults watched. Some even laughed. No one ever interceded. So at 11, she went to beat me again, and I grabbed the extension cord and she fell. And I guess at that moment she felt my strength. And she said, if I can't beat you, you can't be here. And it was a January winter, 1970. Some of you guys remember how cold it used to be and how much snow we would get. So she said, get out. And I grabbed my coat. She said, no, I paid for that. I was teaching my cousins how to read. I was making $7 a week. So I was able to buy my own clothes. So I put on my sneakers, t-shirt, and jeans. I ran downstairs. And I opened the door, and the cold hit me. The snow and the cold hit me. I looked at the stairs. I looked back at the cold, and I opened the door. And when I walked out that door, I felt free. And all of a sudden, I hear the window open from the 3rd floor, thinking that she's going to say, come back up. Well, I'm sorry, which I never heard before. But she said, you forgot something. She threw my dog out the window. So my dog hits the ground, the snow turns to red, and we were in Bushwick, and I walked to East New York in my t-shirt and jeans and sneakers. Each step, my foot would go down the snow. I get to my grandparents' house, and I knocked on the window. My grandmother opened the window, and she said, wait right there, I'll be there. She comes out, opens the door, and says, Helen said, you can go back home if you get on your knees and beg her. I said, beg her? I'm not begging anyone. She said, you can't stay here. You can stay the night, but you can't stay here. Yeah, grandma, too. It's called a dysfunctional family. My grandmother was 15 years older than my mother. And so next day I got up. She called me bright and early to get up. Put on my grandfather's coat and went to school. Came back. There was an abandoned car next door to their 2 homes. And I lived in that car. And then I realized things only mattered to me if they mattered to me. So I was going to validate myself. But walking, whenever I walked, I thought, I became free. And I walk today. I walk sometimes 20 miles a day.
And that's ultimately changed your life in a lot of ways, right? Has it become a coping mechanism, would you say?
It is a coping mechanism. I mean, it dealt from religion. I went to a priest. I had been involved with some things in my life. I grew up in the house of organized crime boss, Italian organized crime boss, where they gave me a home. And so I was privy to things, and I saw things, and I went to share things, and I spoke to that priest. It felt good, and went back to see him the next day, and the nun said he wouldn't speak to me. So I started going to the Bowery, and I would find someone, buy them. I said, I'll buy, you listen. But the thing was, I had that that thing that Will Smith had to make people forget much earlier. I would give them $20, buy them a meal and a bottle. And by the time we finished talking, that bottle had to be empty, and they didn't remember me. With all those things, I made my life in film, television, acting, boxing, and then I fell in love for the first time. And my love gave me more pain than my mother gave me because it was betrayal. I was betrayed. So I called Malik 7 o'clock in the morning. He don't answer. He doesn't answer. I called him again. He didn't answer. I called him a third time. He still didn't answer. Fourth time he finally answers. I said, Malik, because he knew the party. I said, I'm heartbroken. He said, you're heartbroken, huh? I said, yeah, I'm heartbroken. He says, I just had quadruple bypass.
Literally.
And we talked, and his doctor told him he needed to walk to build strength. And I said, well, you know, I've been walking all my life. Let's walk together. And he could barely walk 10 steps. But every step he took, I took, and we both got stronger together, and we shared. And next thing you know, we walked to 7, 8, 10 miles. And we're sharing, and other people are watching us walk, and they're joining us. And the mantra of our walk was, we walk till we figure it out. Well, we walk till we get tired. But whatever we say stays here. And I stood there. So we called it Brothers United, because black men, at least I hadn't seen any black men. I had been walking by myself, and then I was walking with her. The more we walked, the closer we were. The moment we stopped walking together, then everything else happened. So with that, walking is freedom. Walking is heart health. Walking has helped me mentally, because without the walking, I don't know if I'd be here. You know, so you meet people along the way, and you're not alone. You're never alone. You may feel alone, but you're never alone. So Malik knows he can get a phone call from me anytime, and he can call me at any time. But I am no different than either one of you. I'm a loving, caring person, but I learned a couple things here. One I learned from Malik. Two I learned from Malik was vulnerability, because in my life, everything was a projection of strength, from boxing to street life to whatever else. It had to be strength. And my strength was, if I kept you afraid of me, that made you think twice of messing with me or whatever I was dealing with. But he taught me how to cry. So people see these two grown men walking in the street crying, thinking something was wrong, and not realizing we were releasing whatever pressures or whatever happiness it was. And the happiness was we're two black men celebrating each other and realizing that we can figure out anything we want to by walking and talking, putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
So with all that being said, life is amazing. And I thank you for hearing me. And if anyone needs to talk, you can always reach out to me.
Yeah. Thank you, Dan, for sharing, your very powerful story. All three of you, gentlemen, thank you so much. I know that we have a little less than 10 minutes at this point. I believe that this is the Q&A portion of the panel discussion. Does anyone have any questions for these guys up here that you maybe want to? Okay. So we'll have you walk over to the mic stand there.
Is it on? My question, good morning. My question's for Malik. I'm from the Bronx too, so yeah. What was the protein that they tested you for? Because I need to ask my doctor. I missed the name.
So, lipoprotein, parentheses, little a, lipoprotein, little a, and C-reactive protein. So really insist that your doctors check for that, because the normal blood test does not check for those. You really have to advocate for yourself, because they'll tell you things like, oh, you're too young, and so for me, I'm like, all these doctors I've been seeing all my life, no one thought with my family history, and I didn't even think that I should get checked. But I tell everybody now, get that CT scan. Look inside. Forget just the blood work. Look inside. Because for me, it took 4 months to get to the answer. I could have been dead. So I just tell people, circumvent all the blood tests alone, or the stress test or the EKG. Insist, if you have it in your family, say, I want to get a CT scan first, and then the angiogram can go in and tell you exactly what's going on.
May I add to that? I also have lipoprotein little a. So I take rovastatin every day of my life.
Thank you, Malik.
You're
Another
welcome.
thing with the blood pressure.
Excuse me?
The blood pressure thing, you've been on the medicine since your 20s, so that's a couple of decades. So is there any hope to get off of the medication? Because sometimes they say genetics is involved, and it's hard to get off.
That's the goal. But at the end of the day, if there's a genetic predisposition, then you have to be as careful and thoughtful about taking the medicine, and then also making sure you're living as healthy a lifestyle as possible. So my goal has always been to have no meds, but I've tried that too,
How'd that work?
I'm still on meds.
Yeah, I just got on some. My father has the blood pressure, and I got his genes too, so I'm working on trying to get off of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's each case is individual, but I think, we can go to all sort of socio-political reasons, historical reasons why we're carrying this stress and this trauma generationally. I just think we have to take a very holistic approach, but most importantly, educate ourselves and be advocates for our health. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Alrighty, next up.
Good morning, brothers. It's so good to see you. I bring you greetings from West Coast. I am grateful that you are here because you have exposed to the world the mental health capacity of men, that it's a reality that men do fight and deal with mental health issues. A lot of times in silence because of that strength that is supposed to be held within you. But I'm grateful for the fact that you have revealed that mental health is here and that men deal with it. And my brother who played for the Raiders, Raiders, Oakland, I also fight with depression. And suicide I thought was my best friend, but I realized that life is so good and that there's a step beyond that through medication, through therapy, and the supportiveness of community just by being verbal and saying that this is who I am and what I deal with. And I fight it. I fight it, and I don't try to suppress it, but I walk through it. And I'm grateful for the journey. I'm grateful to have heard or that you all have given us life in a different capacity. And walking brings freedom, and it does bring liberation because you see something different with every step. And people don't understand that walking and just being amongst what God has given us in creation allows everything to come in and be viewed differently. Thank you for your expression. Thank you for your authenticity and the reality that, we fight this every day. Blessings to you.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much.
And I just want to add to that, there's a lot of value in walking in nature. So we talked, like walking in city streets gives you one feeling, but we walk a lot in Prospect Park and just literally take your shoes off. Well, he doesn't like to do that, but I used to tell him to take your shoes off and feel that earth and ground and connect is quite divine.
Literally feeling grounded, absolutely. Alrighty, up next.
To the lady's point who just spoke, I'm really appreciative of y'all all speaking about mental health to that extent because you just don't hear that conversation from people that look like us. And To that point, I've been trying to like solve it within my friend circles, but you know, everyone needs to pretend like everyone's harder than they actually are, especially with the internet culture. So I'm just curious as to your own advice as to how you would go about attacking it within your own local community or friend circles, because it's conversations that if they're not had between ourselves, they're not going to be had anywhere. And then we're just going to like reciprocate this unending trauma that we're facing as a community.
Yeah, changing that stigma ultimately. Yeah.
Well, for me, it all started with me. I had to be comfortable with me. Conversations, you know, I say debate is healthy. I don't need a co-signer. I co-sign myself. The more comfortable you are with yourself, other people catch hold of it. And if they don't catch hold of it, it doesn't matter because it matters to you. You validate you. You know, everything starts with you. So, I speak to strangers. I speak to strangers. I rode the bus up and down with the bus drivers. Sometimes it's easier to deal with a stranger who doesn't know you, not to judge you. It's whatever makes you comfortable. There's no one size fit all. When I walk, man, I'm free. Take a long walk. Look around. You'll notice every time you walk, you can walk the same block. Every time you walk through it, you'll see something different. Exposure is everything.
If I can address the other part of your question, which was how do you influence your friend circle? You are the message. Be the message that you want to see. Express your vulnerability. So, you know, when Dan said I taught him to cry, I didn't do anything but listen. And I expressed my own vulnerability. And even as an actor, as a black man, right? Every role I play, I represent you. And I'm very intentional about that. And so there's ways to imbue a character with a vulnerability, because what I recognize, fortunately or unfortunately, as black men, particularly those of us in the public eye, we carry the burden for us all, which is why the entire world had a comment about Mr. Smith, right? So, and we can go deep into what that's about from my perspective as a public person, right? Of the persona, as Dan talked about, that we present to the world as black men, because we're afraid of the homies in the street, we're afraid of the cops, the people looking at you, grabbing their purse when you're walking by, before Uber, the cab that didn't stop for you, all of those pressures, and see the way you're physically standing right now, at attention. You're not relaxed, brother. Put your arms down for a second. Undo your button. Take a deep breath. No, put your arms to the side. Breathe out. So those times when you feel really vulnerable, sometimes it's just as simple as breathing. Literally, because when the breath stops, life stops. And so there is that famous Marianne Williamson speech that people attribute to Nelson Mandela, and that line about when we let our own light shine, we give others permission to do the same. I see your arms. I'm watching your body language, brother. The other thing I would encourage you to do today is write. I don't know what your story is, but you got a story. Write it. And if you really care about, I see, sis, but we're here on a mission. So, like, time is, what's time? It's a construct of man. If we're here to help, then let's sit in it and lean into it. So, writing your story, even if it's for you, write a love letter to your friends. I wrote him a poem. I've never written a man a poem in my life. I did, because what I watched a 62-year-old man crack open He left out a lot of details about being 11. He went from I was 11, I was kicked out, and then the mob had me. But what he didn't tell you is that he broke up a fight of a little white boy and a black and Latino kid in East New York in the 70s when the mob used to still run the 70s, East New York. And that little white kid was Sonny Francis's son. And to pay for Dan's service, he invited him to his home, which he first said no. And then all of a sudden, he's in this world with marble staircases after living in an abandoned car. And all these stories that he told me in our walks that he never told anyone. He would say, so he said, let it start with you. He began to express vulnerability to me at 62 years old that he never shared with anyone. I'm like, bro, you've been with this woman for 9 years. She doesn't know. Nope, she don't know that. You didn't nope, this person. And we first met when I was doing New York Undercover. When he was a cop. He's got a film that he wrote called Danny Boy, his life story that I'm going to direct. It's basically Precious meets Goodfellas. Wrap your head around that.
Alrighty.
He wrote his story. I have a book coming out called Black Men, Hollywood, and Trauma. And I started writing this months ago. I put myself in the line of fire every single day as a black man for you. Understand this. And so, part of my own healing of being traumatized as a public person, some of you might remember, a couple of years ago, I was dragged on social media for standing up for the trans community. And my beloved black community eviscerated me. I was no longer Malik Yoba, the servant. I was the persona. They attacked my persona, not realizing they were causing me pain, adding to the trauma of being shot, heart surgery, COVID, being kicked out the house at 16. All those fears as a black man that I talk about that we all carry every single day. And the cumulative effect, you mentioned social media, the damaging psychological, mental, emotional, physiological impact of that intake of negative energy is having an effect on us that we won't know about for 100 years. Write your story, write your love letter to your boys or whoever's in your friend circle. Be the message that you want to bring.
Beautifully said.
I'd like
Malik,
to say one last thing to you.
Malik, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I think we have to wrap up now. I think we're going over time.
I want to say one more thing to him,
Okay.
please.
Okay.
Walk in your truth and honor.
Yes, sir.
Be that. Walk in your own truth and honor.
Thank y'all. I appreciate y'all a lot. Thank y'all.
I would like each of you to just do closing comments, but I did want to let the audience know that there's another panel in progress, and I will just begin it after they finish, but we would love to hear closing comments from each of you. So thank you very much for this powerful discussion.
We want to thank our moderator, Elijah Westbrook. Many of you would recognize him from CBS 2 News here in New York. I want to tell you a little bit about him. He graduated in 2015 from Quinnipiac University, earning his bachelor's in broadcast journalism and marketing. And he was a reporter for several stations in Rochester, New York, and Baltimore. And he is an Emmy-winning broadcaster. And this came about because of his live, in-depth reporting on the Black Lives Matter movement in the summer of 2020. So Elijah and his family are also from Harlem. So welcome home.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you so much for the panel. We loved hearing your heartfelt stories, and we hope to hear more from you over the next few years. This is a very important issue. Thank you again.
Thank you, everyone.